Australia #1. It's always pretty amazing to see a challenger topple a giant, and that's what happened at SoCal Swordfight 2025. The reigning world #1 for Rapier and Dagger for a decade, Rob Childs, is a gargantuan figure in the community, and rightly so, who has stood tall as the dominant R&D fencer in the world, and accepted an exhibition match against Australia's own Woody Craig, who fences Rapier and Dagger significantly less regularly. But it's time to waltz some Matildas, because Woody won that match, and in a spectacularly controlled comeback.
That's match goal.
An important factor to note about this match is that Rob Childs holds his sword in an absent position in the second quarter, right down his leg. Not too different, actually, if you're at all familiar with epee, to like those 15-year-old kids who hold their epees down at their knee because they think they're geniuses because they know what counter-attacks are. In Rapier, this concept works similarly, but while I've heard some very academic arguments for why it's martial, at the end of the day, the pressure comes more from denying the opponent an obvious line to hit cleanly than it is about baiting a fall short to hit first. So it's doing a slightly different thing to what it tends to do in epee. What we end up seeing is that, yes, Woody spends the first exchange getting a feel for how he wants to approach that problem. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to see the first score because the camera cuts at an incredibly inconvenient moment, but it's scored as 1 point from a shallow target or cut to Robert. However, if we watch the lead up, we see Woody take multiple probes through Child's first quadrant lines to see if he's comfortable finishing with a simple oppositional finish to the leg. The answer is no, and he ends up getting touched in part because of how he pushes and remains close. But he gains really important information. That choice isn't on unless Childs makes a change in reaction to something else. Woody is next touch. The important thing to note here is Woody softens up his press. This leads to Childs slowly feeling more comfortable to move inwards, thinking he knows the space Woody can attack in. Woody takes a half lunge feint, which is important because it does two things. It shuffles Rob back so that he goes forward again, which allows for a feint in tempo. And it dictates when Rob will move back and forward. So he is always acting out of his own time and into Woody's. This forces him to react to Woody's feint, which opens up the leg cut. Now we have two more touches to the end of this match. The first touch from Childs, Woody just steps in too far and fails to change the initiative. Childs presses really smartly, never giving away an obvious response he can't control, and converts off Woody's Hail Mary action near the end of the field of play. However, Woody strikes back with the clincher. For those who might not understand, there's a tendency in historical fencing rules to weight touches to certain targets differently, for reasons that vary greatly in their validity. And this time, more actively uses Rob's preference to set up with the reactive pulling to force him into obedience, resetting the distance when things felt unfavourable. Eventually, he presents a pushing invitation that Rob latches onto, committing hard enough that the leg cut Woody throws forces him to break. And this again means that when he re-enters, he's doing so on Woody's terms, in Woody's time. And the finish that is made, just as Rob starts to look in for an opportunity, is fascinating. Woody Craig doesn't generally like beating the opponent's sword, but in this case, he uses the angle provided by the beat to deny Child's entire natural upwards moving extension options. There are none there, and that would be much harder to do with traditional low line opposition. And so this just leads to Childs having to reel back, and it's an easy finish. It's a lovely score that finishes this challenge match from an amazing Aussie fencer you'll see in another video soon.